Oregon State. I've been following Beaver Camp, and I'm always interested to see. They have a lot of positional battles going on right now, and it's so day-to-day that it's hard to have takeaways. What I find interesting, and I know we kind of always come back to this position, I get it, but it is a pretty important one. It seems that Ben Branson just continues to be the name that gets thrown to the media. Dashel did a piece on him. Angie has been noting this.
Yep.
Jake Hedberg at Beaver Blitz has been noting this. The battle at quarterback. And Beaver fan, I think, believes it should be McCoy because of where Gunnarson's come from.
He likes having a mobile quarterback.
There's, right now, I think if I was to gauge it, I would be a little more surprised if it's not Branson starting because I think they want to start their year with somebody who's familiar with what the program is, has been there for a while, is familiar with style. I know the style of play is going to be a little different. But just, I know these guys, McCoy started at Idaho, Johnson is a wild card, but it just feels like it's Branson's right now for Oregon State. It was kind of my read yesterday, continues to be the guy talking to the media. Ben Branson, who's putting off medical school to be the quarterback at Oregon State.
This is a very interesting storyline, and I'm wondering what the reaction will be from Oregon State fan if this is eventually announced, because I think there's going to be a lot of pushback. And whether that's fair or not, whether it's right or not, time will tell.
Oh, you think there'll be pushback?
I do think there will be.
Because he's not mobile?
He can't move, and I know like Oregon State will always have that comeback in the Civil War where they won the game 2 years ago, down by, 19 or whatever in the third quarter. You know what his numbers were in that game?
You don't need to remind us. He handed the ball off. They beat Oregon the same way they beat him in 2016. He ran the ball.
6 of 13 for 60 yards and 2 interceptions. And so I think the calling card for Branson would be he's a winner. I think he went 7-2, if I'm not mistaken, in his starts that year, or 7-1, something like that. The only ugly one coming early in the season against Utah. They were very fortunate to beat Stanford that year. Remember, you had kind of the Hail Mary in that game. But he only had in all of those starts 2 games where he threw for over 200 yards. He had 8 touchdowns and 5 picks. He handed the ball off, and that's how he was able to win. And so I feel like there's almost a false equivalency of the support for Ben Branson to say, well, he's a winner. It's like, yeah, well, Jimmy Garoppolo won in San Francisco, but are we giving him the credit for the winning? I don't think so. What has he done since he left? Absolutely nothing, and Devontae Adams hates him. And I do think that this would be a little bit of a mistake. I think if you had the same offense and the same staff completely intact, and you wanted to make that argument, if he knows it, he's familiar with it, he's been around it, he's been on this offense for 3 years now, he's got a leg up on everybody else, I would understand it a little bit more. But in the case where it's a new OC, a new offense, and a largely new staff, I know some names are back, but a largely new staff, he shouldn't have a leg up in that category. I've seen this guy play. Now, to be fair, I haven't seen much of the other guys outside of Idaho highlights.
So why should he not have a leg up then if you've seen him play succeed and you haven't watched Idaho?
I don't like using the succeeding thing. I know that he won games, but he was not good as a starting quarterback.
But okay, and certainly you can
with a better Oregon State team than they're going to have this year.
You can certainly make an argument from a skill set wise and maybe what the offense. We keep saying the offense. We have an idea. We don't absolutely know yet.
No.
Okay? You can certainly make an argument that it's McCoy, and I totally get it. But I was watching one of the fall camp videos yesterday from their wide receiver coach who was their interim at the bowl game, Keefens Hinson. And he kind of just talking about wide receivers. And what I find interesting is like the mobility factor. It's an obvious, glaring thing that Branson does not possess. We all are aware of that. But for them, and Bray has talked about this too, kinda for Oregon State, loaded at the position of wide receiver. They are bigger and maybe faster than they've ever been. They've had some good wideouts come, but largely it's like one guy, and then it's a group. And it was the one area last year we talked the most about and said,
a weakness.
It seems like a weakness,
yep.
And it kind of felt like it was. This year, with Vasil and Clemens and the guys they have coming back, it feels like they think it's a strength. So how important is mobility at quarterback if you're really high on your receivers? I think it's more about accuracy and getting the ball to your playmakers. And again, we don't know all of the in and outs of what Gunderson's offense is going to be.
No.
You have to see it in a game. You can't point to UCLA and say, well, there it is. Yeah, probably elements of it, but also Chip was there. And so, like, what was Chip's? What's Gunderson's? What did Gunderson like that he's going to apply to himself? What was Chip's? And Gunderson was like, it's not something I'm necessarily big on. I don't think it's as easy as taking the film from UCLA and throwing it in Oregon State. It's going to be exactly this. Mm-hmm. Gunderson's going to be his own play caller. And so I get what you're saying, the mobility factor. I won't make an argument there, but I just look at the receiver positions and say they seem pretty talented on paper. These are guys that they're pretty high on internally. Accuracy and getting the ball to them could be far more important to them in year one.
Yep.
Because what do we always talk about with Oregon State year one? You need to get your legs under yourself. You need to have a good season. You need to make everybody feel better, be respectable. And if you're 8-4, if you're better than that, great. But if you're 8-4 and you're in the top 25, you had a damn great year one. And for them, maybe Gulbranson presents the best opportunity for them to get to that position.
And look, I don't get to see fall camp every day. I have no clue how these quarterbacks are playing.
I don't either.
And how they're,
I don't either.
No clue how all this is looking.
Yeah.
The only thing, I understand every argument that you're making. The only pushback that I will give is that I don't necessarily think that and maybe he has improved because he didn't play last year. So maybe he's played the bowl game, but outside of that, we didn't see much of Gulbranson. He stuck around.
He was a third stringer.
So maybe he has taken a big step. Maybe things have changed. Maybe he's more prolific in their offense. When he went 7-2 as a starter 2 years ago, he barely completed 60% of his passes.
Sure.
And so it's not like he was this prolific passer that just can't move a little bit.
Yeah.
He was not a prolific thrower of the football. And so that's where I'm having a hard time of saying if there's not that big of a drop-off in passing game from Gulbranson to McCoy, or there's somewhere in the same ballpark,
right? But
I get the added mobility of another guy. I'm more attracted by that, but that's just my sense on a quarterback, and maybe Gulbranson is showing them something different. He went 7-2 as a starter largely because Oregon State arguably had the best defense in the conference 2 years ago. I think stats would largely back that up. And they had one of the best run games and one of the best offensive lines
in the country.
And I don't. Maybe the defense is going to be good this year and catch people off guard. I know they're good at corner and Braze. That's his side of the ball, and they surprise people. I don't think they're going to be as good defensively as they were 2 years ago, and I feel fairly confident in saying their run game will not be as dominant as it was when they had one of the best offensive lines in the country and Damian Martinez, who was their back.
Yeah.
They're going to regress in those two categories, and so I don't know if he's going to be able to ride the coattails to all these wins the way that he was. Now, to be fair to him, maybe he's taking steps as a quarterback, and his completion percentage won't be 61%, it'll be 68, 69%, and then at that point, I think your argument is completely valid.
If they end up pivoting and going McCoy, I'm not going to sit here and kill him for it. I'm just simply saying it feels like they haven't announced it. It kind of feels like they're setting up for it to be Gulbranson.
Yeah.
And so I'm just making an argument of why maybe they'd be doing that, not only what they're seeing in practice.
We did this, remember, a couple years ago when they had Sam Neuer in for a year and he won the job out of camp, and then they benched him halfway through his first game at Purdue.
Well, I don't think they're gonna hesitate.
No.
If it's not going well for him, they'll go to McCoy.
Yeah, we got options.
So a check-in at Oregon State camp.